And fourth graders, welcome to today's reading, continuing our work on realistic fiction that we've been doing the last 3 days. And what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be reading a story called Slow and Steady Wins the Race. What I'll want you to do is I want you to follow along as I read the story. You can read along yourself at home if you wish. And then you will be doing the template on the Seesaw assignment in which you will write complete sentences when talking about the different characteristics of realistic fiction, which is the point of view, setting, characters, conflict, and solution. So here goes. The story is called Slow and Steady Wins the Race. It is by Dinah Anastasio. How about a race to the cave? My brother Jake asked as we were heading back to the cabin. I didn't like Jake's suggestion for a couple of reasons. It was late in the day. I was tired, and the cave was way at the other end of the beach. But Jake implored. He begged and pleaded until I finally agreed. That's what little brothers and big sisters do, I guess. Once we decided to race, though, I began to get really excited. I like races, especially if there's a chance to beat my brother. First one into the cave wins? Jake asked. That sounded fine to me until I realized it would be dark in the cave and I would be alone in there if I was the winner. I don't like to be alone in that cave, especially when it's dark. Then Jake added, smugly, as if he read my mind, don't worry about being alone in the cave because I'll be in there waiting for you. Grrr. While we were discussing the rules of the race, Maria, Kai, and Kai's dog Tucker joined us. Jake asked them if they'd like to race to the cave, too. Maria was antsy to get home. She was eager to start reading the latest book in her favorite mystery series. Kai didn't seem to care one way or the other. Jake pleaded some more until Kai and Maria gave up and said they'd race, even though they didn't really feel like it. Ready, set, go! Jake shouted, and I took off. I tried to run a straight line along the water's edge and not look back. I did glance to my left once and noticed that Maria was heading toward the trees behind the cabins, which made me wonder if she knew some kind of a shortcut. I ran as fast as I could, but it wasn't an easy race. There were rocks and bits of driftwood to jump over, and the incoming tide brought unexpected waves. When I finally reached the cave, I shouted, "Hello? Hello?" No one answered, so I knew I'd won. I stood outside the entrance for a while, and then I peeked inside. It was all creepy and shadowy in there, so I didn't go in. I sat down near the trees at the side of the cave and tried to catch my breath. I figured if one of the other kids came by, I wouldn't be afraid to rush inside and touch the wall. I had been sitting there for about a minute when I saw two round, shiny black things in the trees. The black things were two jewels glittering in the fading sunlight. I squinted and shifted around until I realized the shiny things were eyes, and the eyes were watching me. I sat stone still and tried not to move one tiny bit of my body. I watched the eyes watching me, silently at first, unblinking, until they moved closer. The shape was too big to be a rabbit, and too small to be a bear. Whew! It was just a deer looking down toward where I was sitting. I had always heard that deer were frightened of people, but this deer didn't seem at all scared of me. This deer seemed curious, full of questions about my eyes. If this deer wasn't afraid of me, I thought, then why am I so afraid of the shadows in the cave? For some reason, I didn't care about winning anymore. All I cared about was trying to be as brave as this deer. We studied each other for a long time until Maria arrived and scared the deer away. She didn't mean to, but she was so excited to tell me something that she was a jack-in-the-box, bouncing up and down. I was looking for a shortcut and I heard a moose calling somewhere in the woods, Maria said breathlessly. I could see that Maria was no longer thinking about winning the race either. I knew it was a female moose because its call was so slow and steady, like a violin bow playing one long, low note. It didn't grunt like a bull moose. I called back, but I was too far away. Kai and Tucker arrived a few minutes later, and they weren't thinking about winning either. The strangest thing happened, Kai said as he sat down. Tucker and I were right behind Linda. Then Tucker noticed a fat little bird flying around above us. He was a stubby, sand-colored race car driver doing figure eights in the sky. The bird was making a peep, peep, peep sound as it flew, so I knew it was a piping plover. I was afraid that Tucker would bark and scare the bird, but for some reason he didn't. Tucker just watched it flying those figure eights up there, too, so that's why we took so long. I thought about the race. All I had to do was stand up, move a couple of inches into the cave, and touch the wall. But for some reason, I didn't want to. I wanted to hear more about Maria's moose call and Kai's piping plover. I was thinking about this when Jake arrived. I thought he'd run straight into the cave and declare or tell us that he was the winner. But he didn't. He just sat down and started explaining about the game of follow the leader that he'd been playing with the sand crab. It was amazing, he said. The crab was moving along the sand backward like they always do, so I squatted down and moved backward too. Then it burrowed into the sand, so I put my fingers together, thumbs out. My hands were curved crab claws and I dug into the sand. 2. Then the crab scurried toward the water. I ran quickly after the crab, but it disappeared somewhere in the surf. When Jake finished his story, I told everyone about the deer. It wasn't frightened at all, I said, so I decided not to be frightened either. Did you go into the cave? Jake asked. I shook my head and said I'd been too busy with the deer. I thought Jake would hop up and run into the cave then, but he didn't. We all just sat there, quiet. I was thinking about my adventure, and I'm sure Maria and Kai and Jake were doing the same. No one spoke, no one moved. No one went into the cave to touch the wall. For some reason, it didn't seem important anymore. And that's it for the story. Now that the story's done, you will need to go to the attached template on the Seesaw assignment and answer the questions that are provided. Have a great day, fourth graders. Bye.